It's Darren Rose Music Network. This is B-Side Stories. Before introducing today's guest, welcome. Another beautiful, well, I shouldn't say beautiful. It's a mild winter's day here in the Silver Lake borough of Los Angeles. 55, but not too cold to still be outside. Happy New Year for those that haven't checked out the show yet this year. And we've got a new site up. DarrenRoseMusicNetwork.com is where you can see all the shows that we're doing, all of the past episodes, and find out how you can donate if you've been enjoying what we're doing here, supporting artists and building more content around the the artist industry community, then by all means, please support. So, getting into today's guest, he's, I guess we first met in 2009. I was at 98.7, and you were in a little bubbling up band in LA, and you would come into the station. We played a few of your tracks. Here we are 5 years later, and you have amassed something that happens so rarely in music that it's almost tough to define it. I would say maybe once or twice a year a band comes along that puts out a song that transcends all genres, that spreads worldwide, that becomes so familiar and part of somebody's culture that it just, you know it by heart. And that's exactly what this gentleman here, Sebu Simonian, did with his other partner in crime, Ryan Merchant, as part of Capital Cities with their track Safe and Sound. Of course, the album, Tidal Wave of Mystery, is also a wonderful piece. He's father, husband, producer, musician, hell of a guy. Sebu, thank you.
Wow, that was an amazing welcome. So happy to be here. This really is a beautiful day and a beautiful setting.
And yeah, we
Pug? No.
This is Peg, and she is Pug. I thought you meant she's Pug. No, she is a Chihuahua Rat Terrier.
Okay, she's Peg.
She is Peg is the name
adorable.
of it. Yeah, she's great.
Thanks for having me, man.
Of course, I'm so glad we could do this, and I feel like we're kind of bookending the last 5 years, because I know we did a handful of interviews when you guys were first bubbling up, and here we are now. You've been basically on tour for I don't know how many years. 4 years?
2 years.
Okay.
We started gigging about 3 years ago, but the last 2 years has been pretty extensive, and we've had the privilege and blessing to be able to, see a lot of the world, and it was an amazing experience.
Yeah, and we're going to get more into the music and the career and where what has actually happened, the masterpiece that became over the last few years. But first I want to talk about you, like we normally do. We start at the beginning. You were born and raised in Syria.
I was born in Syria, raised in LA. I'm Armenian. Mm-hmm. My background's Armenian, so we my parents and my family had various kind of locales in the Middle East. We're mostly from Lebanon, Beirut, but then there was all these kind of turmoil going on in the 70s and 80s, so we were able to come to the States.
And today.
It's crazy how the turmoil still continues.
Have you been, how old were you when you left Syria?
When we actually left Lebanon, I was about 4 or 5.
Okay.
Moved around a little bit until we came to the States when I was 6.
Okay. What was your first exposure to music? Were you, was there a lot of music going on in the family stereo? Do you have musical parents?
Yeah, all the time. And pretty diverse too, because my parents liked, the funky stuff back in the day, so I was exposed to Stevie Wonder and the Bee Gees and early Michael Jackson, as well as, our cultural music, the Armenian music and classical music. So it was pretty diverse household, and I started playing music, taking piano lessons and singing in choir since I was a little kid, and just kept at it till now. And
because I know that, what sort of influence musically does Syrian music bring? Or Armenian music. Yeah,
Armenian music is interesting because it's like a nice cross between kind of ancient Oriental style with Western melodic leanings. It's like I think one figure in Armenian music that needs to always be noted. His name is Komitas, and he basically, what he did about 100 years ago was to really kind of take old Armenian music, and then based on his studying in Europe of Western classical music, he kind of brought those two worlds together, and that's kind of what has defined Armenian music for me, at least. It's like a nice blend between old world music and Western music.
Interesting. Sebu, so growing up, listening to a lot of hits, brothers and sisters, were you influenced by outside influences musically from outside the family?
I've been lucky to be able to make music since I was a kid, so I've been in a lot of different environments in which I've been able to collaborate with singers and guitarists and bands. So I've had a bunch of bands I've been in. I've been lucky to do commercial music with Ryan. When we started working together, we started this company to do music for commercials as well, just to kind of pay the bills. So all of that collaboration and experience, whether it's in choirs or in bands or in cover bands, has just filled me with content. You know?
Exactly.
Just in my brain, and really that's what inspires me, the music itself and the art itself, and obviously daily life and love and experiences, personal experience come into play, but it's really about the craftsmanship of music that gets me going. And
it sounds to me, based on what you're saying, is that this is pretty rooted deep in you. You pretty much came out of the womb with this, it sounds like. I mean, I guess the bug just hit me early, I think I was in a choir, my school choir, when I was 6 years old or something, and I've pretty much been in choirs since then, high school, college, and... What about instrumentation? When did you... Piano, yeah, I started playing piano at the age of 6. Okay. So, and you loved it? Yeah. Because I was forced to play piano and I hated it. I wanted to go to basketball practice. There were some rebellious moments. Yeah, I'm a basketball player myself. I tried the whole high school basketball team and almost made the cut. Yeah, right. But that's where, and you're probably a lot like me too, where music has always been faithful. There's no getting cut from music. There's no getting, you can always go in and make something. You can always isolate yourself in your bedroom with some headphones and you'll feel accepted. Was that Sebu as a kid? What kind of kid were you? Yeah, I definitely had my Pink Floyd Dark Side of the Moon headphones stage. And listen to cool concept albums, from the 70s. In my teenage years, and then music I think does inform somebody's style and culture and daily life. So if I'm like in a Pink Floyd phase, I'll probably have a chill year and not maybe party too much. But then the following year, when I got into, let's say, electronic music, and discovered house music and dance music, and all of a sudden, you want to go clubbing all the time. And when did you discover? Because again, talking about all these different influences, when did you first discover like the pop genre? I guess the electro dance pop genre. I can't really pinpoint it. I'm realizing now that genre actually always existed, since the early 80s. Absolutely. Disco. And, it came out of disco, and it was polished up and popped up in the 80s with the Duran Durans and the Depeche Modes and even the Joy Cures Divisions. And Joy Divisions. Yeah. And if you listen to it, there's a lot of electro pop sounding loopy drum beats and house beats in there, and that's what we're trying to recreate right now. Not us capital cities, but in general, there's this direction towards making everything dancey and poppy, no matter what. Even alternative is that. Absolutely. What do you think about that? Just quick interjection on the sound of music right now? Not the film, but the actual sound of what we call alternative, which in and of itself is an alternative to anything from the norm, in my opinion. Anything out of the mainstream is an alternative sound. But it's evolved, and from listening to the radio over the years and living in LA, that you turn on your rock stations here in town, and 10 years ago you would hear Puddle of Mud and Shine Down and Alice in Chains, harder edge bands, where now you hear Imagine Dragons, Capital Cities, Foster the People. You hear more popular stuff. What do you just feel like that's the evolution of how sound in our culture goes, or do you think it's attributed to something else?
I don't know. I have no control over how music develops, or the general kind of trends develop. I think that it's okay that music has gone a little bit more pop in terms of production style, more dance in terms of rhythms. But at the end of the day, the most important thing is the songwriting and the songs themselves and the lyrics and the melodies. And I don't necessarily think that we're at a great time right now in terms of songwriting.
I agree.
There's a lot of pop and a lot of dance happening, and that's great because you can party to that and have a good time, and I'm all for it. But I think our sound happens to be poppy and dancey in some aspects of our album, especially with our hit, the single "Safe and Sound." But I think our goal is to write good songs. The lyrics should be the most important aspect of the song, so we pay attention to our lyrics, but I think it's a combination of the lyrics and the melody. Now, beyond that, when we get into production style, then it's really easy to mess it up and not make it sound cool. A song should be you should be able to strip down a song to just an acoustic guitar and a singer.
Yes.
And if it sounds good in that context, then that means it's a good song. And that's our primary goal when we make our music.
Now, is that how everything starts with you and Ryan? Is it starts with acoustic and some lyrics?
No, it'll start with some instrument. Often we're already kind of in the programming electronica world, but it'll be like a basic keyboard sound usually, or a piano, and Ryan will be on an acoustic or an electric guitar. It will definitely start off stripped down. It might start off with a drum beat and a loop that's inspiring, but we'll get right into the creation of the song right after that with like a simple chord progression, and then focusing on the melody and the lyrics after that.
Now let's run down the list between you and Ryan Merchant, the other half of Capital Cities. How many instruments do you guys play?
We play all instruments.
I mean, is there any? I guess we should put it this way: is there anything that between the two of you don't play?
We play all, but not very well. So when it calls for something really virtuosic, we'll bring in our amazing musicians,
like your trumpet player.
Our trumpet player, Spencer Ludwig.
Oh, guys, and he's a show in and of himself.
He's definitely a show. We've got Channing Holmes on the drums.
And where'd you find these cats?
Well, I actually discovered Spencer at a music festival that we played at, probably the first music festival we played at officially. It was the Abbott Kinney Music Festival
in Venice Beach.
Food and Music Festival, and we played literally the smallest stage. It's a small festival to begin with. And of the 5 stages, we played the 11 a.m. slot on the smallest stage. And then, sure enough, there was one other band that played earlier than us, and that was some avant-garde jazz experimental band that Spencer was playing trumpet in. And we were there, and they played, and Spencer showed up halfway through the set. He was late, hopped on stage, and stole the show. And then we played our set right after them, and then after our set I found him and approached him and asked him to play for us, and after that we've been on this crazy journey of touring and playing some great shows. Channing Holmes is an amazing drummer. He actually just dropped in randomly into my rehearsal studio that I used to run a few years back, and hung out and instantly connected, and he started playing drums for us after that. We've got Nick Merwin, who plays guitar all over the album, but he doesn't tour with us.
Okay. Because neither of you or Ryan play guitar on stage.
No, actually, Ryan plays guitar.
That's
on stage now.
For a few songs.
Yeah, he's actually a great guitarist. He doesn't like to admit it, but he's an amazing guitarist. And picked up the slack after Nick Merwin was unable to join us on tour, and he's doing great on guitars right now. And of course, there's Manny Quintero, who's actually an amazing upright bass player and classically trained bass player. And we're very, very fortunate to have him as our bass player. So we've got great musicians.
And all this. So on your
us.
touring, how many guys, women, people end up jumping up on stage during your live shows?
If it's allowed, which has happened several times. Sometimes the entire stage gets filled up with the crowd. If
the
security,
crowd,
but
the actual players.
Are you talking about the band itself? Oh, okay, I thought you were talking about the crazy.
Well, no,
because
that's what happens. Well, that's what happens to the party of Capital Cities.
Yeah, we're 5 on stage.
Yeah,
five musicians. Okay, yeah. So we got drums, guitar, bass, trumpets, and myself on keys.
And were you always writing, even going back to when you were a kid? Because I wanted to get in, start talking a little bit about songwriting and lyrics and jingles and just putting the written word together in a succession to make it interesting and appealing to people. Because that's kind of been, if you think about it, your career is. I want to talk a little bit about doing commercial production too that you did with Ryan. It's all songwriting. How did you learn, or were you self-taught to craft lyrics?
Self-taught, and also, but the education came from all the covering that we did, all the covers that we did, and
kind of studying lyrics.
I've literally covered hundreds and hundreds of my favorite band songs, and I think that subconscious analysis of how melodies work and how rhythms are some rhythms are catchier than others and some melodies are catchier than others, and they're tricks that you just kind of fill up your brain with after having studied all the best songwriters out there. And of course you hope or assume that the new thing that you're creating is also genuine and artistic and interesting and new.
Well, you have a Craigslist story that didn't end in counterfeit Coachella tickets or murder, which is you and Ryan met through Craigslist. The story goes that you were looking for production work.
Yeah, I was. I just put out an ad saying, "Hey, I'm a producer in LA. If you've got some interesting songs, send them over and let's work together." And I got one response, and it was Ryan. And he sent his music, and it was great. And he wanted to work on a solo album, so we came into my studio, and I helped him start producing it. But quickly, we fell into writing music for commercials because we found some opportunities to do that. We didn't really write too many jingles, now that I think about it. They were music for commercials. So it was like background music. Okay, we want a song in the style of the Black Keys, for this, Dodge Charger ad that we're doing,
yes.
Background music. Like, okay, so we would kind of come up with a piece of music that's fresh and brand new that's never been heard before, but it sounds like it's some rock band. It's kind of like the Black Keys, doing their thing. Nice rock music behind this car commercial. So that's what we would do. Jingles, I think maybe we actually wrote one jingle, and that was for Hellsberg Diamond.
You remember how it goes?
Oh, man. Something like, how did it go? That's how I know I'm loved. Something like that.
I can see that getting in my head.
So that's the Hellsberg Diamond theme song, or jingle, if you will, and I wrote that. We wrote that, me and Ryan.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
And also, around that same time, you guys started putting together the tracks for Capital Cities.
Yeah.
And did you guys just kind of have that immediate chemistry musically?
I mean, yeah, absolutely.
Because that's
absolutely.
essential for
and the commercial music were literally, the turnaround time was so fast that we would have to have chemistry. And they would ask for a piece of music, and we'd have to turn it around in 24 hours. So we'd get through a song, basically, even though it was only 30 seconds. The idea and the core of the song is within that 30 seconds. So our chemistry was quick, our working chemistry especially. So we would just throw back and forth ideas, and it was clear to both of us if the idea should be kept or discarded.
Okay.
And that's the approach we took with our music. whenever there was any downtime on commercial work, we would write our own original collaborations.
What were some
At
of
the
those?
beginning, there was really no intention to start a band and do it this kind of unison vocal thing, but a lot of our commercial demos ended up that way because it was just easier to do it that way. Yeah, you do a take, I'll do a take, let's merge it together, it's going to sound fine.
Okay.
Right? And then we realized that we were onto something there.
Yeah, right.
And we applied that to our, non-commercial collaborative efforts, and we realized, okay, we should start a band like this.
And what were some of those first songs that you guys first played around with that evolved out of?
Safe and Sound was definitely one of the first songs we wrote, and that inspired or encouraged us to start the band, actually, after we wrote that song.
So let's talk about that. What was the early seed of Safe and Sound? Was that a lyric? Was it a riff? Was it the hook?
I would say it was the melodic, the melody, the trumpet melody, which initially, it was not a trumpet. It was a synth line, and it was just kind of like.
And that's Spencer.
And it's actually not Spencer at the time.
Oh, on the album, right?
Yeah, we hadn't met him at the time yet, and initially the first demos that we recorded didn't even have trumpet on it, so they were synth lines. We recorded 7 or 8 different productions by the time we added the trumpet on the final version. Mm-hmm. Hey, maybe this will sound good with a trumpet. Let's try a trumpet. And we got somebody to come play it. His name was Brian Warfield. And then months later, or almost a year later, when we started touring or playing shows and we needed a live trumpet player, we brought Spencer in, and he ended up recording most of the trumpets on the rest of the album. And then, of course, with songs like Chartreuse and Kangaroo Court, the trumpet is like truly powerful.
Oh yeah, throughout. Do you remember how those lyrics first developed?
Yeah, the lyrics, I think the first demo that we wrote was just the first chorus, and only the first chorus. So we wrote this demo, and we started showing it off to people, and that's when we got the kind of encouragement to expand on it. So it actually took us a year to even write the lyrics, because the second and third choruses, if you will, were written about a year later. Mm-hmm. Yeah. I think one of our biggest opportunities that we had with Safe and Sound was a commercial in Germany, where they used it for kind of this telecommunications company out there, like their AT&T or something, called Vodafone. And the commercial was very dramatic and beautiful. It was this story of a couple that get together at a young age, and you follow their life as they grow old together, and it's really dramatic and beautiful, and then they put our music to it, and I think it went viral, and all of Germany just fell in love with not just the commercial but obviously the song, and became fans of the band, and because of that our song went to number one in Germany.
And you told me about the Peru story.
Peru was a big supporter from the very beginning, even before we were signed, or even before we released the album. Mm-hmm. And that was just because some alternative station down there decided to plug their song into their playlist, just out of nowhere, amongst other big kind of alt bands. That it was like your typical alt station. Yeah. Down there, and all of a sudden we noticed that our Facebook page was getting a lot of Spanish-speaking love, and we did the whole analytics and found out it was all coming from Peru. So we went down there and played a show. When
you were signed, when you were touring, and I'm asking, did you feel like you were a little bit leery? Like, okay, we got a major label deal, we got a lot of people that want us. You got to keep a close eye on our money, our reputation, our brand, our identity, while still, connecting with fans. Was that a tough balance, or did you guys feel that was you could do it and it wasn't an issue?
I think it was very challenging to do it all. I mean, you mentioned a lot of things come into play, and the more I guess success a song gets, the more work there will be, which is great.
Yes. More money, more problems, right?
In most cases, in our kind of situation, or any band situation, touring basically becomes kind of up front and center.
Yes.
And during that time, it was a challenge to really be on top of everything. Because while you're touring, you have to really focus on touring and make sure you're healthy and warmed up and play your shows really well every night. Being on top of what's going on behind the scenes in terms of business deals and licensing and the branding of the band and social media and all that stuff.
Not to mention radio promo and meet and greets and all that stuff.
Yeah, so it can get overwhelming, but it was a fun challenge. I think myself and Ryan, we're a good partnership. We were able to kind of navigate, as best as we could, and we're happy with where we're at right now.
The stage show that evolved with Capital Cities. I remember seeing, the early shows of just a couple of guys up there, hammering it out, to some of the more recent shows where you have hundreds of or more people on stage, and it's a party, but it's a well choreographed party. It's not a jumbled mess. It's talented, experienced musicians up there playing. How did that all evolve? And was it something where when you had that's another thing, is that I'm sure there's bands out there that are coming up that would love to have these massive stage shows, but they don't have the funds. So was it something for you guys where as the funds came in, you're like, okay, we're going to kick that money back into the band?
That was definitely a big part of it. But when we first actually started Capital Cities, we went big, and we had 5 or 6 players on stage. Drums, bass, everything. It was totally live. 2 keyboards, 2 guitars, and it was a mess. It wasn't a mess, but I would say Ryan and myself, we're sticklers about sound. Mm-hmm. And we hated going to see concerts with these big, boisterous bands on stage, and it just sounded like crap because the sound system couldn't handle it, or they had a bad sound guy, or the guitarist on stage doesn't know how to dial in his live guitars. And we didn't want to be one of those bands, and we realized that the best sounding concerts were DJs, when we would go see DJs doing their thing. And the reason it sounded great is because they were playing perfectly recorded, mixed tracks through amazing sound systems. Yeah. So we realized that the best thing to do is to combine both worlds. Strip down. Ryan and myself started playing shows as a duo with all electronic backup, except for pretty much our vocals. So it was like karaoke night. But what happened was the experience of the audience was great because it sounded good. You didn't have to worry about shitty sounding drums, a bad sound guy, getting the mix right at these smaller...
You were basically doing it, yeah.
Smaller venues. So you've got an awesome playback track and vocals. From there, when you start kind of climbing the venue ladder and you start playing in better venues with good sound guys, then you can start adding the drummer and the bass player and the trumpet player and the live elements, so that you're 100% certain that it's actually going to sound good for the audience. Don't go there unless it's going to sound really, really, really good. And you've got your team and you've got your sound guy and you've really worked your way up to that. And that was the rules that we set for ourselves.
Sound first.
Yeah, and we added players as we were able to afford, the production to make it sound really good.
So how many shows do you think you have under your belt now as what people go out and see?
So the full band with the 5 guys, we've been at it for about almost 2 years now.
Okay, so a few hundred shows.
Yeah, I would say about 250, maybe 300 shows over the last 2 years.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the Capital Cities Shuffle. We all know what that is. How did that come about?
That was, Ryan loves choreography and dancing. So he always convinces me to do these silly dances for the live show. So we do this thing called the Capital Cities Shuffle, and it's a very, very basic step that we try to teach the audience, and they learn instantly and they participate. It's like a good way to get the party going.
You want to give us a little taste right now? Can we do it real quick? We got, at least for those watching the video.
Okay, well if you
I'll do it with
join
you.
me,
right.
Yeah, okay. 1, 2, 3, 4. 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3. 1, 2, 3, clap. 1, 2, 3, clap. That's it. So once the audience gets this
is easy enough. I'm a horrible dancer. This is great. And then you can get your arms.
And then you can improvise, throw in a spin, clap.
Watch out, Ryan. Capital Cities wise, did you guys build up a collection of things to play around with in the studio?
Yes. Capital Cities has some really cool demos that we've written during the first album and during this touring that we did.
Okay.
And this year, now that we're taking a nice break from touring, we're looking forward to getting into the studio and looking at those demos and fleshing them out into our second album. And there's a lot of good material there already that we're working on, and we're excited to develop on that and write some new stuff. And it's great now because we're so much more locked in with our band, our live band,
yes,
with the drums and the bass. So it's going to be a lot more, live and experimental and edgy.
Oh, cool. Okay.
I think, yeah.
Well, you sent me an awesome email this morning with some secret tracks. We'll just run down the list. You sent me I mentioned earlier about the insane remix of Warren G's Regulate. Has that just always been a song that you've loved? What inspired you to remix that?
Yeah.
And where can people find that? Is that available?
Yeah, you could find it on I think if you Google Warren G Regulate Sebu remix,
okay,
you'll find it. I think I have it on SoundCloud.
I was going to say, do you have a Sebu SoundCloud?
Yeah,
okay,
yeah, I do.
Yeah.
I'm so bad,
it's too much, man.
Yeah,
so many
SoundCloud,
places.
Sebu. Look me up. You'll find it.
Yeah.
That one was we ended up with the acapella tracks because they were doing a remix EP.
Okay.
The Warren G Camp. And when I heard it, so they were looking for kind of this EDM clubby remix, and I heard the acapellas, and I was inspired to do a new version of the song. But what I did was not EDM or clubby or dancey like that. It just became kind of this new take on the original.
Exactly.
And so I decided to just kind of have it be a soft release on SoundCloud, and it's out there. And if you are interested in checking it out, you can download that for free. It's basically like a bootleg thing.
Yeah, it's great.
Other than that,
and you also hooked up with your Armenian homie Serge.
Yes,
from System of a Down.
Serge Tankian, from
the
System
one
of
and
Down.
only Serge.
Yes.
How did you guys connect?
Well, we've been acquainted for years. I mean, I've gone to their shows when they would play. Yeah, back in mid '90s, they would play the Whiskey and the Viper Rooms and whatnot. And I've seen all those shows, and they were amazing. And, so we've been friends since then, but never had an opportunity to really get together or work on anything up until just a few months ago when I kind of cold emailed him and said, I have an idea about collaborating on a song with you, it might sound good. And he quickly wrote back and said, well, actually, I'm inspired to write this one song. Let me send you a demo. And he sent a demo of this song that I loved and put in my 2 cents and sent it back. So it became this online collaboration.
Okay.
And we co-wrote a song together that I produced. I ended up producing and kind of putting my production touch to it. And it's called Faith in Nothing. But we haven't decided how or when to release it. It's just kind of this little gem that came together randomly and out of the blue. And it's a collaboration between me and Serge, and we'll see.
And it's not out yet.
It's not out yet.
Here's a little snippet of it. You had a chance to work with someone that, when we talk about music that was heard on stereos growing up, mine was so much of the Beach Boys. You had a chance to do a track with Brian Wilson.
I did. What a blessing that was. Brian Wilson. It's funny, when I grew my beard out, somebody pointed at me and said, hey, Brian Wilson, right? And I didn't know of Brian Wilson, the pitcher, at the time, with the beard.
Yes.
And I was like, but of course I knew of Brian Wilson of the Beach Boys. And he's like, Brian Wilson, what the hell is this guy talking about? Why is he pointing at me and saying Brian Wilson, the Beach Boys? He doesn't have a beard, you know?
Yeah.
Look, Brian Wilson, the pitcher. At the time I think he was with the Giants.
Yeah.
Giants. Oh, yeah. And then finally I discovered who Brian Wilson, the pitcher, was. But years later, I finally meet my Brian Wilson, the guy that I have idolized since I was a kid.
So how did that come together?
And, they were reaching out to
Brian's camp.
The Brian's camp were reaching out to younger kind of up and coming artists to collaborate on his solo album that's coming out next year. And I was fortunate enough to collaborate on a song with him. He sent me a demo of a song that had this very kind of simple production behind it, and just so I could kind of get a sense of what the song is. And I loved it, and I felt like I could contribute to it. So I wrote back and said, this is the song that I would love to collaborate with you if you're interested. I said, sure, let's see what you got. So I took their vocals and kind of recrafted a brand new chorus. So the verses were ready to go. The chorus was kind of non-existent. It needed a new chorus.
Okay.
So I wrote that, and I produced the music behind it and sent it in like a demo, and they loved it, and we went with it, and we finished it up, got it mastered, and now it's ready to go. It's going to be on his forthcoming solo album next year.
And that's his album. And that's so next year.
Actually, this year.
This year, yeah.
We're already
it's coming out like in the spring, right?
Yeah, it's supposed to come out this spring. It might get pushed back a little bit. I haven't heard the latest.
Yeah, because there is
sometime this year. Yeah,
yeah, there is a Beach Boys biopic coming out, so it might coincide with all that. But basically, this Brian Wilson album is going to be different artists, upcoming artists, performing songs with Brian.
Mm-hmm.
Okay. Do you know who else is participating on that?
I believe Nate from Fun.
Okay, Nate Roos.
Nate Roos is going to be on it. There are others in line, but I'm not sure if they're confirmed, so I'm not going to.
Yeah, we don't want to blow
talk
up
about those. Yeah.
So much cool stuff going on this year. A bunch of one-offs, getting back in the studio with Capital Cities. I want to wrap things up with 5 questions.
Oh.
5 random questions off the top of my head.
All right.
Let's start with a song you wish you wrote. What song do you wish you wrote?
Imagine.
Popular answer.
I mean,
it doesn't get much more
it's cliche,
defining than that. Is there a song that brings you to tears, either from happiness or sadness, but moves you in some way, a track that moves you?
Brings me to tears. I can't get the Little Mermaid song out of my head because I remember probably tearing up one time when I was watching that.
Which one was that?
I mean, just the that whole like magical.
Yeah, it's moving.
It's moving, man.
Moving.
Yeah.
Do you and your wife have a song?
Our wedding song was actually Sour Times.
STP?
By Portishead.
Oh, yeah.
So, but it's weird. It's ironic because it's such a sad...
Sour Girl is STP, Sour Times.
Yeah, it's such a sad and dark song, and yet we love it. And that happens to be our wedding song, so I guess that's our song.
That's great. One new thing that you have learned since becoming a father last year? Either learned about yourself or about this thing that's called fatherhood.
Sleep deprivation is really bad. It sucks.
Yeah. What kind of sleep schedule are you on now?
Man, our kid, 11 months old, has not slept through the night once yet. He wakes up every 2 to 3 hours for a feeding or playtime or, but he is such a bundle of joy and, love knows no bounds.
Yeah.
It's pretty amazing.
And you were saying every day there's some new thing that he's doing. Or
His personality's kicking in.
Yeah.
His personality's kicking in. So you start realizing or understanding what makes him tick and what makes him laugh. And so his tastes all of a sudden start becoming more obvious to the observer, the parent, who's always at first simply protecting him from injuring himself, but now all of a sudden there's some interaction.
Yeah, the relationship evolves.
The relationship
constantly.
starts building, and it becomes this whole new animal. And it's so beautiful.
That's great. Well, congratulations on that. Last question: if for whatever reason, Capital Cities, the Sebu Simonian's career in music ended today, what would you want your legacy to be? What would you want 10 years from now? What do you want the kind of the memory of your life and body of music to represent?
I would say most of the music that I've put out, I'm already proud of and happy with the exposure that it's gotten. I think with Capital Cities, our debut album as a whole is a piece of art that I feel like I can say I put out something good, something that I could be proud of. And if we've moved some fans to enjoy a good 45 minute experience as a complete album all over the world, which we've done, I think that's plenty for me to be proud of, and say I accomplished something. Yeah.
Does it? Well, I lied. That wasn't the last question. With that being said, and how this first album was really a journey. I mean, it was 4 or 5 years to, first meeting Ryan to where it came out with Capital. Is there pressure or a little bit of anxiety or whatever the emotion is going into making that second album?
A little bit. There's it's always good to have a light under you, a fire to keep you going. Timing is key in the music industry to do things well.
Absolutely.
And not just timing in terms of what's happening in music, in terms of musical trends, but also just how fans have shorter attention spans these days. So it's important to always have content to deliver, whether it's in the form of a second album or if that takes a long time. In the meantime, if we're
have an interview sitting by a pool,
if we're releasing stuff, kind of one-offs here and there, doing collaborations, remixes, more shows, more music videos, then you keep the fans engaged and you'll be fine. So we feel like we have good, strong, loyal fans.
You do.
And our second album is going to be hopefully right around the corner.
Yeah, for any artists, bands out there, study the fan relationship with Capital Cities, because you guys have that tight, cool connection, and I think your fans feel part of it. And probably a lot of it has to do with the fact that they get to jump up on stage with you at the shows.
Yeah, we try to connect with the fans after the shows. If it's feasible, we'll always go into the audience or at the merch table after shows and just try to make friends and shake hands and take pictures. Because that's where the fun is at.
That's the bread. Yeah.
Let's face it.
Yeah. Well, you guys are awesome. Sebu, thank you, man.
Thank you.
This was a blast. Capital Cities, find out everything you need to know about these guys, capitalcities.com. If you don't have their debut album, your record collection is certainly not complete. Pick that up. And all these tracks that I played earlier today with Serge and with Brian Wilson that Sebu did, find him on SoundCloud, Sebu Simonian. And thanks again for checking out B-Side Stories here on the Darren Rose Music Network.
Darren Rose, thank you so much,
Thanks,
man.
brother. That was
really
fun.
Appreciate it.